So we don't have to move very far for our next speaker, perhaps about 6 inches across Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I feel embarrassed even to introduce him because everybody knows who the next speaker is, but I have to do my duty anyhow. And I like to embarrass him anyhow, a little bit. So our next our next speaker is, I won't go over the top, but I don't worry. Okay, our next speaker is Sriman Bhudhara Prabhu. What can I say about Bhudhara? He's helped so many devotees make transitions in their lives in all sorts of ways. He's an expert astrologer, but he's so much more than an astrologer because he's very expert in the philosophy, and in what he encapsulates for me is the ability to see the philosophy in a very broad-minded and very integrated way, somehow able to synthesize or integrate the high philosophy with day-to-day living and teach that and imbibe that and bring a lot of people along their journey. And I was fortunate enough, like Lalita, that Bhudhara was my introduction to Krishna consciousness. I don't know what bad karma he did, but I obviously did some good Sakriti there to get that association, that guidance. And I'm excited to hear his sharing with us today, his offering with us today. Bhudhara, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Om Agyanatmirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurudeva Gaurachandaya Harikatha Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Okay, well, I'm really not prepared to speak this morning. I'm a last-minute stand-in, and so I had to run around the house trying to figure out, well, what am I going to speak about? A couple of ideas came to mind, so I'm going to ask your indulgence and patience with me because I'm going to be very improvisational today and just speak from the heart, as I always like to anyway, because for me, that's the only place that counts for me. To begin, I loved Radhika's choice of bhajan this morning, and I want to just refer back to the second shloka of that bhajan. This rare human birth is not often found as we scour the 14 planes of existence. A chance few, by astounding good fortune, get to glimpse a devotee of Sri Hari. And yeah, I think I've been very lucky in my life. I started out in life a creative, disillusioned, seeker, confused, disoriented, trying to seek out God, and I did it in all kinds of ways. LSD was one of the ways that I tried to do it, and somehow, my good fortune, I went on a school bus trip to Boston. And there on the Boston Common, I encountered the Harinam Sankirtan party, and they were all there. This is about this would be about 1969, and I was walking there. It was all my school friends. And we're walking down the common, and there they are. And it was absolute pure magic. It was like watching, I thought afterwards it might have been a little residual effect of one of my LSD trips, but I had this kind of hallucinatory experience of what I saw in front of me, the chanting, the dancing. Everybody was so happy. Their smiling faces. The Maha Mantra rang out and really touched me. Somehow or another, my friends earlier had introduced me to chanting, so I had already been chanting. But when I saw the devotees for the first time, it left a really big impression on me. And when they stopped chanting, they talked about their books. And so I went up and I bought every book that they had. I bought a stack of Back to Godhead magazines, and I put them in my school bag. And I took them back to my high school, and I started distributing them to all my friends. And that began what I sometimes jokingly think of, what is my place in the spiritual world? And, sometimes laugh and think, well, it might be as a member of the Postal Service. Because, because in my life one of the great good fortunes that I've had, one of the great pleasures I've had is in introducing people to the association of Sri Hari's pure devotees. And then, of course, that's most especially through Srila Prabhupada, who not long after I saw those devotees on the Boston Common, I went away to my first year in art school, and I was in art school for about a month, and I thought, I can't take it. And I asked my friends, well, where's the Hare Krishna temple? And they took me there, and I went to the Sunday feast, and they took me into Tulsi Devi's room, which was brightly lit with glow lights, and one devotee with great passion and vigor started preaching to me about my eternal soul. And I had already read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita by then. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to move into the temple. And I moved into the temple, and a few days later, there I was back out on the street selling books and magazines. And so this idea of the great good fortune, some living entities have the chance to associate with the devotee of Sri Hari. I remember Prabhupada telling us that, I said, well, what do I really know? I don't know anything. And I was told, well, it doesn't really matter because you're just a delivery boy. Just take the books and put them in people's hands, and they will have a chance to associate with the book Bhagavata. And that book Bhagavata is as good as the person Bhagavata. And you will create their good fortune. And, somehow or another, I got a taste for that. Even though, I'm not the best postman. I don't follow all the different, I'm not a great devotee, but I get a real kick out of doing that. And if I look back at that time, it was a really important time in the world. The world was in great calamity. There was great uncertainty. There was a big war in Vietnam. Many of my friends had gone to Vietnam and died, or came back completely broken spirits. There was the hippie revolution, resisting all the great corporate interests that were destroying the world. That kind of helped a little bit, but it's still going on. But it was an inflection point in history because Prabhupada came, and Prabhupada opened the portal to the spiritual world by his presence, by his preaching, by his prolific writing, and by opening so many temples. And in a way, I think we're at such another similar time right now. there's that Chinese curse, which is, may you live in interesting times. And oh boy, do we live in interesting times now. And I'm remarking to myself that Srila Gurudev came at just such an important time as well in history. And he unpacked or revealed the deeper siddhanta of our philosophy in ways that have helped us, most of us, I think, certainly more than me, but mature in our understanding of the practice of bhakti. And where is this really taking us? What is our prayojan? What is the goal of our whole spiritual journey? And so I think the point that I'm trying to get at, and I warned you that I was going to be a little improvisational and a little bit random, but I think the point that I'm trying to get at is that you are now part of history. I can, like my godbrothers, you probably get really bored with us because we always come in and we tell those stories that I just told. Well, when I was a new devotee, I went and I did that, and I did a lot of books, and I was the Prabhupada, right? I mean, with all due respect, but we do have a tendency as old guys in rocking chairs to sit back and forth and talk about the great old days, don't we? But you are now in the middle of the great old days, except the great old days are not old, they're new. This is an important time, and you're living in it. And you have a job to do. You have a role to play. And I think it's a misunderstanding to think that in our practice of bhakti that it's only about our sadhan bhajan, our solitary sadhan bhajan. It's only about what's going on in your heart, in your relationship with Krishna, because this is the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the Gaura Yuga. And Srila Prabhupada taught us, of course, Gurudev brought in a different emphasis, thesis. What is that? Anyway, point, counterpoint.
Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis.
And synthesis, right? So the synthesis in my mind is that we have to deepen in our practice of spiritual life. We have to really try to genuinely love our guru and serve our guru. But we can't forget the conditioned souls that are suffering in this world. They're just like us. And they deserve a chance to enter into this completely beautiful realm of Krishna consciousness. I remember when Gurudev started printing his books, of course that had been going on for some time, but Yashodanandan and I were there, and there were others, Ananga Mohini, Krishna Kanta, others, and we all participated in organizing printing of some of his books. And some of the books were actually really quite deep and very esoteric. And so the question was, do we give these to people? And will they be qualified to read them? And Gurudev looked at us and, said, yes, you give them. The book creates the qualification. So the book Bhagavata is the same as the devotee Bhagavata, the person Bhagavata. And so you can ask yourself, well, are you qualified to enter into that association? Am I qualified to enter into that association? Who's qualified? If we had to go on the basis of qualification, Mahaprabhu would have skipped this time around. And he would have said, nah, they're qualified. They can do it on their own. But because we can't do it on our own, because it's the Kali Yuga, because we're so broken, we're so dented. What do they, like in America, they have they have outlets that sell seconds, right? You know, so you have posh designer clothes, but then you can go and buy the ones that they made mistakes with. So we're kind of like the mistakes. So I think that my point is that we're at an inflection point. You're an important part of history. The Brihat Madanga is now more than books. It's the Zoom Kirtan that we're doing here. And we should be thinking creatively how to advance this cause, to share this with as many people as possible. And I'm conscious of the time, so I am going to wind up really soon. And
you're good for time, Bhudhara. You're good.
Am I? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share something really secret and confidential with you. Yeah, and I think for some of you, you're going to be very curious about what I'm going to talk about. But an anonymous senior Vaishnav scholar and practitioner of many years has shared with me a book called that they wrote. I'm not revealing gender, so I'm using the new grammar, not he, she, but they. A book they wrote called The Gaudiya Yuga Manifesto. And it's an absolute work of genius. It's literally breathtaking to read this. The realizations and the insights that are in the approximately 100 A4 pages of this book are a profound call to action, a profound call for all of us to do our very best through a process of deep prayer and reflection and deep association and support to each other, to once and for all rise out of our Kanishta thinking and enter into the doorway of Madhyam reality. And in that Madhyam reality, taking up the responsibility that we have as being disciples of these great souls. And doing our very best to not just live the philosophy according to our capacity, but to share it with other people. I've only shared the document with 2 or 3 persons. And the ones that I have shared it with have come back to me with the same kind of, it's genius. So those of you who are serious and who want to kind of move into a new domain in your spiritual practice, I'm not saying that I'm able to do what this book is calling for, but I recognize it as a historical work. I recognize that it's coming at this inflection point in history. I'm recognizing that it's especially a call to action in the younger generation of Vaishnavas, 2nd, 3rd generation Vaishnavas. Because, you know, in many ways, by the time I was your age, I was already an old man. I started this out when I was 17 years old. So there's no time to waste. You still have your youth, well, by comparison to me anyway. And so why not put our heads together and figure out how we can really take this mission forward and fulfill Gurudev's request to share his books and his teachings like we did with at Srila Prabhupada's time. Those of you who are interested, I can put my email address in the chat session. And if you contact me, I'll send you a copy on the proviso that you keep it for now to yourself and that you agree to share with me a few words of feedback on what your experience of reading the book is. Okay, that's my little improvisation for the morning. Thank you very much. Hari Bol, Radhe Shyam.
Hari Bol, Bhudhara, Prabhu. Sometimes improvisation is the best. It means that only Guru is coming through, nothing else, because you haven't got time to think of anything else. I mean, so many things resonated and hit home with me on that. As you've shared about that book, I won't steal any of the thunder. All I will say is you kindly shared it with me, and you are absolutely not overselling that book. It is astounding. It is absolutely astounding, and incredibly well timed. And there are a couple of words that came out in your offering that really hit home. One was the idea that this is another inflection point in history. It's like another way of saying that, it's like a leverage point. There are certain times and dates in history where a small amount of people can have a massive amount of impact at a certain point in time due to particular conditions arranged by the Lord. And I do feel that is happening now. And then the other thing you said, you talked about getting onto a more Madhyam conception of our philosophy and the importance of giving each other support and affection. And this support and affection is, I really feel, I mean, I haven't finished that document yet, but I really feel that's what it's driving at ultimately, is the need to translate, like how I introduced Lalita earlier. You know, she doesn't normally give Harikatha, but she imbues everything she does in the love and affection of her seva to yourself and your family and to many, many devotees. And in the same way, that support, we're not about just recycling Shastra and talking Shastra. Sometimes when we learn these verses and we learn them so well, we forget what they mean. They only mean something if they are in our hearts, living in our hearts like Gurudev, as Gurudev, and coming through our actions. And it's only really the taster of our behavior who can determine whether we're behaving with that love and affection. So that really, really hit home for me. And I wanted to make one last point, which was that a few of us had organized to do London Sankirtan on November the 14th, which is next Saturday. By the way, as an astrologer interested, you'll be interested to know that's Chaturdasi, right in the middle of Kartik. And we planned it before the lockdown happened. So we're at the moment doing a whole load of legal research to see how we can, you know, do it in a sensible way so we don't end up in a police cell, but still do Sankirtan. So it's a small thing, but it came from a deep desire from some of us where we felt that unless we're sharing, as you said, that compassion with the living entities who are not devotees yet, how can I call myself a devotee? It doesn't matter how much I read or chant. If I'm not doing Sankirtan, if I'm not distributing books, how can I look at my Gurudev and say I'm a devotee? I can't really. And I need to be able to look at my Gurudev and say, I really am a devotee. I'm really doing the seva. And that means Sankirtan, that means books. So I just wanted to share that with you.
That's really wonderful, Prabhu. Really great. I think that, just to reiterate your reiteration, you know, that really, and this is always, Srila Prabhupada asked us as he was leaving, the last request was to cooperate. And Gurudev, by his example, he always, you know, was always so loving and so caring about everybody. And he created a beautiful family around him where everybody felt seen and everybody felt valued and everybody felt that they had a place. And I feel that we're moving in that direction again now. You know, there's an awakening now, and everybody's recognizing, just intuiting that, you know, this is an inflection point. Yeah. Let's get going. Let's do something. Let's at least help each other as best we can.
I believe Prabhupada actually said that you will show me how much you love me by the degree to which you cooperate with one another.
Yeah.
That's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhudhara.